Good evening and welcome to Let's Talk Politics. And tonight's program is a very special edition of Let's Talk Politics. Our topic tonight is not necessarily a political issue per se, but it is widely felt that we are going to be discussing an issue tonight that is of national interest. Of course, you would know 24 hours ago, the president of this country, Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, found it necessary to grace the national airwaves with his presence to address the issue of the efforts his administration are making in relation to the treatment and care of Guyanese in this COVID pandemic period. Dr. Ali found it necessary too because he and his administration have gone to great lengths to ensure not only that Guyanese are cared for, but to ensure that Guyanese are protected. Everything is being done within the power of this administration. And even exceeding some expectations. Everything has been done in the power of this administration to ensure that Guyanese are also protected from this pandemic. I have a special guest tonight, and he's no stranger to any of you. He is Dr. Leslie Ramsammy, who has been playing a very integral role in the fight against COVID-19 from the Ministry of Health perspective. And Dr. Ramsammy, I would like to thank you for being a part of tonight's program. I know you have your work cut out for you, but you've taken time off to share with us.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
being a
very
part of this
much.
program.
Thank you very much, Michael, and thank you all for allowing me to have a discourse on such an important subject.
You're welcome, sir. One of the things I want us to address, but before we get into the essence of tonight's discussions, I want to replay the statement made 24 hours ago. I want to play a statement made 24 hours ago by Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali. As soon as my operators are able to play that video, I'll allow that video to be played. But part of the problem, and as I began by saying we're not talking politics, but the body politic, Dr. Ramsammy, has a very important part to play in the success of Guyana's return to normalcy. Both sides of the political spectrum, or all sides of the political spectrum. But what you found recently is a significant degree, in my view, you found a significant degree of hypocrisy. The leadership of one political side, which represents over 40% of the population, the voting population that is, have found it necessary to ensure that they got themselves vaccinated. They have not even bothered to say to their constituency or their supporters that each and every one of you should get vaccinated. And even more so, Dr. Ramsammy, many of those people who have been vaccinated have engaged in whisper campaigns, encouraging many in their constituencies not to get vaccinated and, and perpetuating rumor mongering among those people who are already vulnerable for various reasons because of the COVID pandemic. I know I have been talking a lot, but I have said that to say to Sir that what you found significant is that there is a very low percentage rate of vaccination in areas predominantly referred to as APNU, AFC, PNC strongholds. My question is not to you, but I will ask you to chime in on this. My question is to the leadership of the main political opposition. Why? Why? Why, Mr. Granger? Why, Mr. Harmon? Don't you care for your supporters? And to the supporters, why? Don't you care for yourselves? Dr. Ramsammy?
Okay. Thank you, Michael, for putting it in perspective. It would be remiss of me were I not to start tonight first by acknowledging something you began this program with. Last night, the president spoke, but it wasn't the first time that the president spoke on the matter of COVID 19 or on the matter of vaccination against COVID 19. In fact, Guyana is doing fairly well in acquiring, first of all, vaccines. And it would be remiss of me were I not to let the Guyanese people know that our success in acquiring vaccine in a large way has to do with the work that His Excellency, our President, has been doing. In fact, the President and the Vice President have led from the front when it comes to acquiring vaccine. And so the fact that at this point of time, when 31 countries have no vaccines, when most of the developing countries, in fact, virtually all of the developing countries, have a difficulty accessing vaccine, Guyana has already vaccinated with the first dose close to 160,000 people. And today we would have surpassed 10,000 persons having both doses. And in fact, we have secure enough vaccine, even though all may not be present in country right now, to vaccinate 500,000 Guyanese with both a first and second dose, meaning that Guyana has put in place mechanism to have in our possession 1 million doses of vaccine. That is a massive achievement. And we have been led in that success story by His Excellency the President and by the Vice President. So I think this country needs to know that. This country needs to understand that we have leaders that have been out front in leading this process. They have not been missing in action. They have not been standing on the sidewalk on this one. The Minister of Health and other leaders of the government. And so to look at this country rolling out vaccine, and as I said, by the end of today, more than 160,000 Guyanese would have received their first dose. It's something that Guyanese people should be proud of. So it will be remiss on my part also not to thank the many people who have come out and taken the vaccine, and 60,000 of us, which means that more than 1/3 of our adult population um, have taken the vaccine, which puts us in terms of developing countries in the top echelon of rolling out vaccines. The goal of the government is to ensure that sometime by September, all adult persons living in Guyana have received 2 doses of vaccine. And please pay attention to the words I just said. All persons living in Guyana. Didn't say Guyanese, because Guyana, to its credit, is providing vaccine for all the persons who are within our borders. And in terms of the United Nations and so, of country responding to its migrant population, we have led the way on that too. Having said all of this, Michael, let me come back to the premise of your opening remarks, which is that in any vaccination program, but in particular this vaccination program, which is intended to protect our people against a killer virus, we expect all leaders to play their role. Political leaders, business leaders, faith leaders, persons involved in NGOs. There is no such thing as responsibility in this initiative being only that of the government. The government clearly has embraced its role, has embraced its responsibility. Other leaders have come forward. So let me give, express my gratitude to the members of the media. The fact that you have chosen a political program to talk about an important public health issue is an example of the media taking on a positive role. The television stations, the newspapers across the board have played a role. So has the business community. Business leaders have stepped forward. I want to thank the business leaders for coming forward. Every day, business leaders, employers are calling me, asking me to send teams, calling the Minister of Health, calling the ministry, so that we could send teams to their workplace. Religious leaders, leaders of the Hindu faith, Christian faith, some of the Christian leaders have stepped forward. The bishops have come forward. Bishops, the Roman Catholic bishop, for example, have come forward and taken their vaccine. The newer political parties in Guyana, their leaders have come forward and taken the vaccine, but doing more than taking the vaccine. They have come out, they've joined the leaders of the PPP, they've joined the president and the cabinet in urging people to take their vaccines. And in fact, all the political party leaders, including APNU, AFC, PNC, have taken their vaccine. So, in terms of taking the vaccine, the political leadership of this country across the board have taken their vaccine. But I find it a little bit disturbing that, in spite of the fact that all the political leadership have taken the vaccine, not only the leadership, but their families have taken the vaccine, that only some have come out and spoken. See, politicians have a responsibility to their supporters. When there is something good, they should urge their supporters to come out and access that good. They should, in fact, help to access that good for their supporters. And so PPP leaders have come out, taking the vaccine, and call on their supporters to take the vaccine. ANUG, TCI, the Citizen Initiative, they have all spoken out, urging their supporters and urging our Guyanese sisters and brothers to take their vaccine. But absent in this call is the former president. He hasn't spoken anything, and I want to reiterate your question before, Mr. Granger, where are you? Missing in action is not an option at this time, Mr. Granger. Being AWOL at this time, when your Guyanese sisters and brothers have their lives in jeopardy, is not the posture that anyone expects from you. The same thing with the leader of the opposition, Mr. Harman. Where are you, Mr. Harman? If you're having a good dinner tonight, if you're having a drink tonight, Mr. Harman, shame on you, because you should come out now, not tomorrow, and urge your supporters to take their vaccine. Mr. Ramjatan, where are you? Former Prime Minister Nagamutu, where are you? Ms. Lawrence, where are you? So they have been absent, but they've taken the vaccine. They and their family. Not only they and their family, you remember when we started with 60-year-old and older, and then 40-year-old older people? Many of the leaders of that party called me personally to ask me to arrange waivers for relatives who were much younger than 40. So you're protecting your family, but you don't care about your supporters. And if their guilt was one of just silence, that's bad enough. But their guilt is not limited to silence. They are engaged in an active whisper campaign. So let me give you an example. We arrange in what is known to be an extremely solid PNC support community. A church agreed to host the vaccination campaign. We made all arrangements for that campaign last Monday. On Sunday evening, the pastor of that church called to cancel the event. The person helping us to arrange and organize that outreach called, and I said, no, we are not canceling the event. We can force the church to host us, but whether no one come, whether one person come, whether two or three or four come, we were going to continue with that outreach. And so I want to thank that business owner, a man with a little shop, who agreed that we can carry on with the outreach in front of his shop. And we did. And for those 57 people that came and got their vaccine in that area, kudos. You acted on behalf of yourself and your family. You ignored those who were pressuring you not to come. And we see this all across the country with this whisper campaign. I know people, the Prime Minister yesterday arranged an outreach in Alboystown. 36 people came and got their vaccine. And that kudos to them. And some people were disappointed. I wasn't, because it's 36 people who would not have had the vaccine had we not go there. So we will continue to go to these places. But it is sheer hypocrisy. It is shameless And it is reckless that persons who take the vaccine would encourage others not to. But I must say this, that one member of the APNU AFC in Parliament who took the vaccine did urge people to take their vaccine. This is just within this past week. The former Minister in Health and Foreign Affairs Minister, Dr. Karen Cummings, came and got her vaccine and did an interview and gave us permission to air the interview, urging people to take their vaccine. I want to thank Dr. Cummings for that. I would like to see the other 30 members of parliament in the opposition come forward and similarly, because they took the vaccine, and similarly urge people to take the vaccine. I've spent a lot of time in this introductory remark
Absolutely.
because the
And I've allowed it
hypocrisy,
because it's very necessary.
because the hypocrisy is not a, a harmless one. It is causing death among people. And if some people want to play politics, let me tell my sisters and brothers in this country, no matter who we voted for, there is one thing that is not playing politics, and that's COVID-19 virus. You think the next person that is infected is going to be determined by who we voted for? The next person, we don't know which political party they support. The next person that we have to report on that died because of COVID 19, we don't know which political party they belong to. And therefore, I want to join you, Mike. I want to join our Guyanese brothers and sisters who are living in fear right now to urge all our leaders. We must find something, some platform on which we can work together with. We did many times before in this country. In 2005, when this country, Region 4, was under siege by the worst flood in our history, when leptospirosis had threatened to kill hundreds of our citizens, our leaders got together. Those of you who recall the doxycycline campaign to stop the leptospirosis, Mr. Corbyn, Mr. Alexander, and others took the doxycycline into South Georgetown and other places. We worked together and we stopped leptospirosis. There are times when we put our differences aside and work together. With COVID-19 threatening more chaos in this country, it is time that we come together. So let me urge Mr. Granger, Mr. Harmon, Mr. Ramjatan, Mr. Trotman, Ms. Lawrence, Ms. Amna Ali, it is time that the silence is ended. It is time that the whisper campaign is ended. It's time you come and help to fight COVID 19. Vaccination is our only way out of this pandemic. And every single Guyanese, no matter who they voted for, no matter who they support, should come forward and take their vaccine.
You know what is sad, Dr. Ramsamy? The only reference I've heard the immediate past president make to or of the COVID-19 pandemic in the last 6 weeks or thereabout, it was in his response to a question in relation to the PNC's Congress. And someone put the question to him, are you running from the challenge to your leadership? And Mr. Granger responded by saying the only thing he's running from is COVID-19. Now, your only reference to COVID-19 in the past 6 weeks is a joke. And I find that to be utterly disturbing and disgusting. But,
I like that
but
second word, disgusting.
absolutely. But before we go further, Dr. Ramsammy, I'll ask our operator, my operator, to play an excerpt of President Ali's statement, most recent statement.
Good evening, fellow Guyanese. This evening I wish to update you on our vaccination drive. As you're aware, we are taking every step possible to ensure that we exit this pandemic, to ensure we reduce the loss of lives, and to ensure that we can go back to normalcy as quickly as possible. As President, I once again express on behalf of the government our condolences to all those who have lost loved ones. As a country, it pains us every time we lose one of our brothers or sisters. And indeed, this pandemic has taken too much of our Guyanese brothers and sisters. As of today, we have administered more than 154,000 first doses of the COVID-19 vaccines. This accounts for 31% of our population 18 years and older, or 31 persons out of every 100 citizens 18 years and older. Indeed, I must compliment our healthcare workers and all those who played such an instrumental role in bringing us to this point thus far. Achieving this was no easy task. As a country, we had to act proactively. As you're aware, these vaccines are hard to come by. They're expensive. The logistics in moving them around is also very cumbersome. So it is a collective effort that has allowed us so far to reach 154,000 first doses, or 31% of our population 18 years and above. In terms of age distribution, for our population 60 years and older, 61% of that population age group has already received their first dose of vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine. In our population, between the age range of 59 to 59, almost 29% of that population has received their first dose. And in our population between the age group 18 to 39, 21% has received their first dose. We all know that the bulk of our population is the younger population. I want to take this opportunity to call upon all our young people to go out there and get vaccinated, to ensure that they take this very seriously. Not taking this seriously put at risk your families, put at risk your friends, your community, and your country. All our region would have had between 30 and 36% coverage of their population above 18 years old. In every single administrative region, we would have had coverage of between 30 to 36% of population above 18 years old, with the exception of region 8 and 10. So in two regions, we are not having this coverage. Particularly in the case of region 10, only 8.9% of the population above 18 years took the first dose of the vaccine to date. This is very concerning. This is very alarming. We have been having continuous educational programs. The government, led by the Prime Minister, had an extensive outreach in Region 10 over the weekend. We have seen some improvement, but we need to do much, much better in Region 10. We need to understand the seriousness. We need to also understand that Region 10 is the gateway to the interior, which borders Brazil, and we all know that we have very extensive borders, and the likelihood of the borders being breached or persons breaching the border and coming over as positive cases is indeed a challenge that we are facing and we have to face. We have deployed additional assets from our task force, human assets, from the Army to better secure our borders, but still, this challenge is indeed real. We are therefore very concerned about the low acceptance level of the first dose in Region 10. I therefore continue to appeal to every Guyanese that, though not mandatory at this stage, taking the vaccine is the best option we have to save lives and exit the pandemic. I'm very concerned also about the continued whisper campaign, not grounded in science or facts, against vaccination. This does not help our communities and country to exit this pandemic. And I appeal to all of us to put our country first, put the lives of the people of our country first, and help in advancing the vaccination program by encouraging every Guyanese to come on board.
That, of course, was an excerpt of a broadcast made by His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Fanali last night. And there were some references, like, for example, the figure of people who would have gotten their first vaccine. Because that was yesterday, he would have stated it's 154. Dr. Dr. Leslie Ramsammy, who I am discussing this issue with tonight, he would have brought us up to date on the most recent figure. If I could recall, that figure tops 160,000, and those who have received their second their second vaccine, that figure would have topped 10,000. And I stand corrected, Dr. Ramsammy. But the president referenced a very important point, that it is not mandatory at this time. At what stage, in your own estimation, it should become mandatory?
We have utilized vaccines in this country for more than 60 years, and vaccines have never been mandatory. And in fact, globally, we have ensured that people have an option. However, having said that we have options in terms of taking vaccine, please bear in mind that there are mechanisms in place that are used in many countries that mandate the use of vaccines. And so let us remember that, for example, right now, you can't travel to Jamaica unless you produce a yellow fever certificate. There are many countries in the world that require a yellow fever certificate. Canada is now saying that it is actively considering requiring vaccination against COVID before people enter into Canada. The UK already require persons from certain countries to be vaccinated before they enter into the UK. So, and the US have been talking about a vaccine passport. So, even if Guyana does not move towards a mandatory um, policy for COVID-19 vaccine, in effect, our dependence on global policies will make it mandatory because you're not going to be able to travel. For those persons who have listened to the fake stories being spread, who have become victimized by the whisper campaign, let me say to you this, that as soon one of those countries that you would like to travel to make such a requirement, you will be running to get the vaccine. You will forget all the fake stories you hear. Just like people run now to go to the Ministry of Health to get the yellow fever vaccine because they want to travel. So, yes, we still make it an option for people to take the vaccine. But if we're going to have people dying because of COVID-19, there, every government will make certain policies. For example, in some countries right now, you can't participate in sporting activity. If you are a sports person and you want to be a player, for example, if you don't have your vaccine, you can't be a part of the team. Same thing with workplaces. Workplaces could make it mandatory. So I am not saying any of these things will happen in Guyana. Hopefully, we don't have to go in that direction. Hopefully, good sense will prevail and people will, in fact, come and get their vaccine.
Is a pretty sensible one. And I've also been looking at and reading some of the comments made by individuals looking at this program tonight. And Pam Singh makes a very important point. She says COVID-19 has no color, religion, race, and creed. It will get to you if you are careless and don't want to adhere to the warnings being given. It's simply put. It's not
Exactly.
it's an equal it's an equal opportunity pandemic. There is no discrimination. So
And God protects us by one thing. God gave us wisdom to make the right choice, the wise choice.
and it's
But
in
God
that
never
context, Dr.
promised that he,
Ramsammy, I believe it's in
yeah.
that context I found it disappointing your comment about the church which chose to cancel the outreach at the last moment, and I find that to be truly disappointing, and that's putting it mildly. However, the show, as they say, the show goes on. What are some of the
We will
approaches
get
being?
to every, let me say this, Michael. We will keep coming to every community in this country. We will not give up because, from our government's perspective, every single Guyanese is equally important, and our obligation to the Guyanese people is equal, no matter who they vote for, no matter where they live. But the stupidity of those who are encouraging people not to take the vaccine is this. And this and and the unwise choice of some not to become involved in pushing people to take the vaccine is this, that none of us is safe until all of us have the vaccine. The president made that point last night, that it is not enough for one of us to take the vaccine. Both of us have to take the vaccine. All of us have to take the vaccine. Because for those who don't take the vaccine and don't get protection, if the virus keep moving among the people that are not vaccinated and change enough, then it can come back to haunt those who have already taken the vaccine. And so that is why it's so critical that all of us take the vaccine. The stupidity of those leaders who have taken the vaccine and then encouraging or not playing a role in encouraging people to take the vaccine is that those who don't take the vaccine could render the vaccine that others have taken useless. And so this is a time, and you know, when you ask the earlier question about when will it become necessary to make it mandatory, when the behavior of some of us put at in jeopardy the vaccines that are already in our bodies, then that would be high time for us to make it mandatory. Um, so it's an easy choice. It's an easy choice. Do you want to live? And for those of you who could never find yourself voting for the PPP, here, better take the vaccine so that you could have an opportunity to vote against us. Because if you don't, you may not be around to vote against us. So if you really, really dislike us, go take the damn vaccine.
It's an interesting way to put it. I must say, a very interesting way to put it. One of the things that must be considered, Dr. Ramsamy, and I know this has been said widely, the decision not to be vaccinated. And I believe you put it in another way earlier in this program. The decision not to be vaccinated has dire consequences, has potentially fatal consequences for everyone in your household. And it is something that each and every individual should consider, especially, Doc, if you have aged members of your family living with you. One must, whilst considering this as a personal decision, you have to take a look around your house. Look at your relatives, look at your children, look at your husband, look at your wife, and make that conscious decision that this is not only about me as an individual choosing to or not to take the vaccine, but it's about everyone in my household. I could report, from a personal standpoint, I could report that everyone in my household has not only been vaccinated but has been tested, because it is it's the true essence of loving those you truly love and care, truly loving those who you love and care for. So in my view, the decision is not as personalized as individuals may think. There must be consideration consideration must be given to those who are around you, everyone around you. It is not,
Ex-
even though you're deciding
Exactly
whether
right,
you
Michael.
as an individual should take the vaccine, it is not a personal decision.
No, this is a collective decision. Um, we take this vaccine not just for ourselves, but for all around us. And in fact, I've been saying to people, I hear a lot of people preparing for Sunday, a lot of people preparing for Mother's Day. If you really truly love your mother, you will take her to get vaccinated. Now, you will want to be vaccinated for your mother, your grandmother. It is all of us in this boat. There's no such thing as this is a very personal decision. It is not. Because if one of us decide that's my choice, you have also put everybody's life in jeopardy. And so for those people, there are, by the way, people genuinely reluctant, not because of a political leader or a religious leader. Some people, for example, want to get pregnant, or young couple, they want to have a baby. And people have heard stories that maybe this vaccine will make you sterile, for a woman, that I wouldn't get a baby. There is no such evidence. Millions of young women have taken this vaccine. There is no such evidence, scientific evidence, that this vaccine will cause a woman to become sterile. There are guys who believe, who have heard stories, and they believe that the vaccine might make them impotent. There is no such scientific evidence. And so there are people who hear these stories, who read these things on the internet. This vaccine is safe. This vaccine is absolutely safe. More than 1 billion people around the world have taken vaccine. As I said earlier, by this evening, 160,000, just over, Guyanese would have taken a first dose. Not one of them have died. Because we hear that story too, that if you take the vaccine, you will die. There is this story that is part of the Whisper campaign, and some people believe it. We can believe in crazy things sometimes, that the vaccine has a bomb inside. It's a time bomb, it will explode. Well, you just said it, Michael, that you and your family took the vaccine. Is anyone of your family member exploded yet? My family have taken it. We have not exploded yet. 1 billion people around the world have taken the vaccine. Not a single one has exploded yet.
Mr. Granger or nor Mr. Harman have exploded.
Exactly right. But there is this part of the whisper campaign that the vaccine has a microchip that will permit the government to spy on you. This is what some of the supporters are being told. You think Mr. Granger would have taken the vaccine if he honestly believed it had a microchip and the government would spy on him? You think Mr. Harman, Mr. Ramjatan, Mr. Trotman, all of them would take it? So there are absurd stories, but I want to thank those supporters of the PNC who have come out and taken the vaccine. Many have. And to those who, because a lot of us have loyalty to the party we support, you know. Um, and so what happened is some of the supporters are beginning to go into other communities and take the vaccine because they're not stupid people. They can reason for themselves. Guyanese people, when it comes down to their life and their issue, will consider what is the truth. Just like people didn't buy the SOP stories, they're not buying the story about microchip, about time bomb, and things like that. And little by little, it's crumbling. The president mentioned about Lyndon, and I've seen more and more people coming forward, slowly, but they are coming forward. And so we went into one village that supports almost 100% the PNC, APNU AFC. And the first time we went, got nobody. Nobody came. The second time we went, over 50 people came. So little by little, people are beginning to understand. It is a race. The race is now between vaccinating all our people or Guyana getting into a terrible place. We look at what's happening in India, don't think it can't happen to us. Because let me say this to all of my sisters and brothers, no matter who we voted for, no matter which corner of this country we live in, no matter what church we go to, because where India is today, other countries were there before. Don't forget that at this time last year, America was where India is now. Don't forget that the UK was there. Yes, you watched the cremation and so in India, and you didn't see that in America and so. But ask many of your family, because you know what? Maybe more Guyanese died in America of COVID than have died here. Ask them what happened last year when their loved one died in the hospital and they could not go take possession of the body. And that body was put in coffins right in New York City when they dug trenches and put those coffins in. Yes, it's a different image from what you see in India. But what happened in India today happened in America this time last year. And unless we all make the wise choice, this isn't about where you put your X on a ballot paper. This is about whether we want a journey to the ICU as the first stop, and the final stop could be the mortuary. This is what this choice is about. And so the choice got to be an easy one for us to make. We want to choose life. And so when you look at India and you marvel and you put your hand on your head and you think that that could never happen here, it happened in the great America. It happened in the great United Kingdom. It has happened in many rich countries. Italy, last March and April and May, same thing happened. We behave today as if this is a new thing, what's happening in India. It's a horrible thing that is happening in India, but it happened in many other countries before. And my prayer tonight is that it doesn't happen to us and it doesn't happen to any other country. And like America and like the United Kingdom, India is able to pull itself out of this terrible mess. So we pray for them. But I also have to ask all of us to pray that it doesn't happen to us. And for those church
And
leaders
our
who have not
approach,
stepped forward, let me say to all of you, it would be hypocritical to ask people to pray for us to stop COVID when God has given us the answer in our hands. The vaccine was developed by wise men and women who got that wisdom as a gift from God. So let's use it.
it is at this point that we have to bring this program to a close. Dr. Leslie Ramsammy has been at the forefront of the government of Guyana's effort to protect its citizens from the COVID-19 pandemic and to ensure that our healthcare system is at a place where we could provide the requisite care to those who have been affected. Also at the forefront has been Prime Minister, the Honorable Mark Phillips and his team at the COVID-19 Secretariat. And of course, leadership provided by His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. And by no means least, Dr. Ramsammy, I have to recognize the effort and the hard work of healthcare workers across the length and breadth of Guyana who have been at the forefront of this fight.
We all owe a debt of gratitude to the health workers, and I want to big up all the health workers who have put their own lives at risk every single day, and of
Doc-
course, led by our Minister of Health.
Dr. Leslie Ramsammy, I'd like to thank you for being a part of this program, and
Thank you.
I'm hoping that we can do this more often in the near future.
Thank you much.
I'd like to thank those who have been viewing this program on the Facebook page of the People's Progressive Party. This has been Let's Talk Politics. I'm your host, Michael Gordon. I thank you for watching. Join my colleague Edward Lane tomorrow, same time, same place, and I will be back with you on Sunday for another edition of Let's Talk Politics, brought to you by the People's Progressive Party. Good night.